Listening is more than hearing words, it's understanding emotions, perspective, and unspoken feelings. In today's fast moving world,
That's a
genuine
really
listening has become a rare but powerful skill. In this interview with Maya, we'll explore how effective listening can improve relationships, communication, leadership, and personal growth. Welcome, Maya.
that's a really thank you for having me. I'm ready when you are.
Maya, how would you define effective listening in simple words?
I'd say listening is basically when you stop just waiting for your turn to speak and actually start paying attention to what the other person's feeling. It's like the difference between hearing a noise and actually understanding the song.
Maya, why do you think many people struggle to truly listen fully?
I think it's because we're all so used to the noise of life. We're constantly bombarded with notifications and a million different thoughts. So we've trained our brains to skim rather than dive deep. It feels faster to just get the gist of things, but we miss the actual heart of the conversation in the process.
And what is the difference between hearing someone and genuinely listening to them? Maya, what is the difference between hearing someone and genuinely listening to them?
Hearing is just physical, it's your ears picking up sound waves, but listening, that's an active choice. It's when you're not just processing words, but you're actually trying to map out where the other person's coming from. One is a reflex, the other is a relationship.
Maya, how can effective listening
Did your phone
improve
just go off?
personal?
Did your phone just go off? Or maybe it was just a glitch.
Maya, how can effective listening improve personal and professional relationships?
Oh, it definitely does. It's like this invisible wall. Even if the phone isn't ringing, just having it face up on the table tells the other person, you have my attention, but only until something more interesting pops up on this screen.
And what are some common habits that make people poor listeners?
I think the biggest one is the biography habit, where someone spends the whole time thinking about their own story that relates to yours instead of just staying in your moment. Then there's the habit of fixing things too quickly. Some people hear a problem and immediately jump to, here's the solution, without actually letting the person feel heard first.
Maya, can listening carefully help reduce misunderstandings and conflicts?
Because most conflicts aren't actually about the facts, they're about the feeling of being misunderstood. When we listen carefully, we catch the subtext. We realize that when someone is complaining about the dishes, they might actually be saying they feel unsupported. If you address the feeling instead of the dishes, the conflict usually just melts away.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a couple where one person is stressed about the house being messy. If the other person just hears the words and says, I'll clean it later, they're treating it as a task. But if they actually listen, they might realize the tone is exhausted. They're not actually asking for a clean floor. They're saying, I'm overwhelmed and I need help. The first response fixes the mess, but the second one fixes the relationship.
Maya, what role does body language play in active listening?
I'm assuming you're talking about body language? It's huge. So much of what we're actually saying happens before we even open our mouths. A lean in, a nod, or even just the way someone avoids eye contact can change the entire meaning of a sentence.
Maya, how can someone become a better listener in everyday conversations?
One of the easiest things is to practice the pauses. Instead of jumping in the second they stop talking, just give it 2 or 3 seconds. It gives them space to add that one last thought they were hesitant to share. And it shows you're actually processing what they said rather than just waiting for your turn.
Maya, do you think social media and technology have affected our listening skills?
It's turned our attention into something fragmented. We've shifted from deep, focused conversations to these quick, snackable bits of information. When we're used to scrolling through a feed every few seconds, that same restlessness follows us into our real life talks. We've basically trained ourselves to be impatient with silence and the slower pace of actual human connection.
Maya, how can parents, teachers, and leaders use listening to build trust?
Well, it starts with making the other person feel like the most important thing in the room. When a child or an employee feels that their perspective is actually being weighed and understood, they stop feeling like a cog in a machine and start feeling valued. Trust isn't built through the right answers. It's built through the feeling of being seen.
Maya, what advice would you give to people who want deeper and more meaningful connections?
Stop trying to be the most interesting person in the room. Try being the most interested. When you shift your goal from how do I impress them to what can I learn about this person that nobody else knows, the entire energy of the conversation changes. It makes the other person bloom.
Finally, what message would you like to share about the power of listening?
I think the biggest takeaway is that listening is a gift. In a world that's constantly shouting, giving someone your full, undivided attention is one of the most generous things you can do. It's the fastest way to turn a stranger into a friend and a conflict into a connection.
True listening is one of the greatest gifts we can offer another person. Thank you, Maya, for sharing such thoughtful insights on communication, empathy, and connection. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Remember, sometimes the most powerful response is simply to listen. If you like the video, like, share, and comment.
You're so welcome. That was a great session. I love how we wrapped that up. Do you feel like you got everything you needed for the episode?